I think so.
No. Don't you?
Mayor, we're live.
All right, it is 6 o'clock and we're going to kick off this Lake Stevens City Council meeting. It's March 24th and we are down at the mill, downtown Lake Stevens. We are going to go ahead and record this council meeting as well, and it will be later published on our YouTube channel. So with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yep. Councilmember Jorstad. Present. Councilmember Donahue.
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards. Present. Councilmember McManus.
Present.
Councilmember Shipman.
Present.
Councilmember Araya. Here.
And Council President, could we get an approval of the agenda?
Still your microphone. There's been a request to move consent agenda item 8G to action, and a suggestion that we have action occur just after consent agenda and just before council business. And would entertain any other changes or a motion to approve with that change.
Move to approve as amended.
Second. Motion a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mayor, you have an agenda.
All right, thank you, President. All right, looks like I'm up. I'm gonna take a stand kind of by the podium here, although I doubt I'll stay very long. Sound okay on this lapel mic? Cool. All right, let's do a state of the city presentation. We like to do this once a year. It's just a great opportunity for us to talk about the accolades of the city and everything that's gone well over the last year, and as well as talk about what we're going to be doing as we move forward. So let's hit it off with the slideshow.
We're getting there.
Okay, perfect. So this presentation was put together by Olivia and Kaylin. They do a great job every year, great pictures that are captured over the year.
Actually see the great pictures.
All right, there we go. Good stuff. In the words of Napoleon's brother, I love technology. All right. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Lake Stevens, we are one community around the lake, which is a great motto for us, I think, and very indicative of how we are running the city these days. A little bit about who we are, where we've been. Lake Stevens is the gateway into East County, into Snohomish County, and into just the beautiful area that we live in with mountains and lakes everywhere, hiking trails. We actually live in just a great, fortunate location. We have a great history as a city, one of timber and mining and resorts and vacation town. And it's just a great opportunity for us to celebrate where we've come from and where we're going to. Next one. As a city, these are some of the things that we do. We're roughly 42,000 people inside the city right now. These are the departments that we currently have under city that we manage and provide services for within the city. I'm going to go through each one of these and a little later on in the presentation, talk about their success stories. And next slide. This is our great and wonderful city council, and they're all amongst you at this time. Good to see. We have some new faces, 4 new faces within the city council right now, and we meet here second and fourth Tuesdays of every month, and then we also fill in the inside Tuesdays if we need to do workshops to do some work on projects or subjects. That's usually our up tempo for city council. Next slide. We wanted to start this off. Marcus Tangent, as many of you knew him, passed away this last year. He was on our city council. I was very reflective last week. Last week I was at the National League of Cities conference in DC. That's the last place I saw Marcus, was at NLC. He bought me dessert like he always does, and it was a reflective week last week. As some of you know, we are going to be moving City Hall into our complex that we have towards the south of the lake, across from Tom Thumb. Part of the remodel of those buildings and of that grounds to put City Hall in, we're going to go ahead and put an interpretive trail to commemorate Marcus Tangent for his many years of service, not only on City Council, but within our community. And there's that little pond that's right in the corner of the complex. Interestingly, he told me just before he passed away that when he was a kid, he actually fished in that little pond. So it will be a great memorial for him to have that trail. Next slide. As many of you know, we do a lot of work within our city with Lean Six Sigma in mind. We have almost 40-ish% of our staff are either green belt or black belt trained within Lean Six Sigma. And if you don't know what Lean Six Sigma is, it's the ability to find processes to be more efficient in an organization. And we do that as it pertains to government. We actually have a Lean Six Sigma kind of academy, center of excellence is what we call it. And we host black belt and green belt training here. Not only for our own folks, but for anybody who wishes to come to it. We have a lot of outside agencies, private and special districts, other cities who send their folks here. And it's a great little networking collaborative effort to learn how other folks do processes. And it just builds up our own cadre of citizens within our own staff. So it's great. Next slide. Some of our success stories over this last year. We have an inventory control specialist now, Gus. He took some of the skills that he learned from his course and put that towards, we haven't had an inventory control specialist before in the city. And so he is really working on making sure that we have the right inventory at the right time for a lot of our projects that happen within the city. So we don't have excess inventory and overruns on costs. So he's doing a great job there. And then Brandon did some work within our facility to create more efficiency of space. And then Lauren, who runs our training, that is a new position as well, and she is building that out to make sure that all those courses that we have to run and certifications that we have to have as employees are kept track of and worked through. Next slide. This last year was the first time we did an internship program within the city, and it was highly successful. We had 5 interns through, and we had one in the emergency resources. We had human resources. We had one in the emergency management, community development, and then a couple doing our GIS layers. They did a lot of work for us, and we'll talk a little bit more about their projects, working on the comp plan annex for emergency management. While they did a GIS, if you go on our GIS dashboard, you can see people can report seeing wildlife, and it's kind of fun to go in there and see what's in there. and talking about our critical areas as well, and just building out HR policies and our wellness events. So they did a great job. We're looking to do that again this summer with interns as well. Our work orders. If you followed the couple last state of the cities, you know that we did American Public Works Association accreditation. Part of that was to really build out our asset management and asset maintenance. Part of that is a Citizens View portal where each one of you can download onto your phone, even if you have an iPhone. Us Android users use it a lot because it's what we do. You can download the Citizen View app and report issues that you see in the city, a cracked sidewalk, pothole, whatever it might be. And then it goes straight to Public Works. They triage it and get to work on those work orders. So our work orders this last year within Public Works is they've created over 10,000 work orders were completed for 2025. It's quite a lot. Next slide. Volunteer opportunities. I always like to talk about Just Serve. This last year, we actually received a Just Serve City Award. Just Serve is where we would really like our community and our citizens to go to find service opportunities. I often see that question like, hey, I've got the weekend off. I want to go do something. What's going on? And Just Serve needs to be that bank that people go to not only put in opportunities, but also to look for opportunities and serve within our community. That's what Just Serve does as a tool. We also have boards and commissions that citizens serve on. And we actually have vacancies on the civil service and the salary commissions right now. So if you are looking for opportunities, that's a great place to start. Next slide. So many years ago when I ran for mayor, one of the things I ran on was to create a trail underneath the power lines in Westlake Stevens. So from 20th Street north. I'm very, very fortunate that this last year we were actually able to fulfill a section of that and did a ribbon cutting for what's called the Bayview Trail that goes from 20th Street, just kind of east of the trestle station, and it goes north to 12th Street. And I think you'll see later on that we will, this spring, kick off the next phase of that and go from 12th Street to 8th Street. We'll just slowly keep going north until we meet Marysville. If you hit the next slide, you can see it's a very difficult to see map. So this is 204, right? And this is Soper Hill right here. So the goal is to bring that trail all the way north, and Marysville's bringing theirs to south, and we'll meet those up. And then you'll be able to eventually get all the way to the Centennial Trail on that same trail. Great project, great coordination with Marysville. We're currently, we received $500,000 last year that will do the design engineering for the 8th section to 204 section. Then we'll have to go out and find some money to actually do the construction. Great project. Next slide. A big plus for the city this last year was Caballero Hill. If you don't know where Caballero Hill is, where the skate park is, across the street from the trestle station. For the longest time, that was a county park inside the city. And this last year, the county gave us that park. So now the city runs that park, and there's a vision for that park that it will hold a community center in the very south end of the park. So just sets up a great opportunity for us to, we have very, very little open space left in the city, and we really need to kind of focus it on some recreational opportunities. And so this is a great place to do so. Next slide. We had a great project this year. A girl named Allison Jones reached out to me 2 years ago. Her daughter has apraxia, which is I'm not sure exactly all of it, but it's a kind of a communication issue. So she asked to put some communication boards in our parks, and I think this is a great example of our parks doing great work to ensure that we're inclusive in our parks. And so now in each of our parks, we have these communication boards that kids can communicate better with if they need to. Cool project. And that was a lot of Rotary money, and I think Sherwood Community Services was involved with that as well. I'm very pro getting our staff involved, not only at the city level, but at county, state, and national levels in their organizations to make sure that we're looking at and learning best practices of other cities and bringing those back. So you'll see that we attend several conferences as a staff to ensure that they're getting up-to-date information. And what ends up happening quite often as well is we find that we're experts on subjects, and we end up doing a lot of panels and discussions where we're leading those education events. Next slide. Grant awards. So this last year, you can see that we received about $3.8 million total in grants. Various grants, whether it might be stormwater, capital improvements, TIB money, whatever it might be. Because I think it's very indicative, because we're such an active staff at several levels. When you're at those conferences and when you're doing those things, you're meeting the right people and finding out where the money's at, and we're able to bring that back. Next slide. Some of our city administration accomplishments, public requests, almost 2,000 public records requests over this last year. It takes up a lot of our staff time to do public requests. Some of them are as mundane as I need a traffic report, and some of them are huge, as in, who knows? It could be, you'd be amazed at what people ask. So it spends a lot of time and resources and money on that. We also do a legislative event every year that our city administration works with in the fall, and we bring in our legislators to talk about what's going on in the city. Next slide. Our finance runs very well. We have four or five folks in the finance section. They do a lot of work, and one of the bullets down there is process $39 million in vendor payments, including 588 vendors. Like, that's a lot to keep track of and to understand. If you're a business owner, small business owner, like understanding your vendors and invoices, that's a lot of work to make sure that that's all figured out. As well as we did 42 city projects last year with $5 million worth of capital projects. So our finance stays very busy, and you can see over here to the right how the city is funded through different revenue sources. HR. They headed up the internship program I already talked about. We did some strategic planning this last year, creating the new mission, guiding principles, strategic focus for the city. Our emergency management for the city has been good in the past, and Max, who runs that, has did a lot of work this last year to increase our emergency management plan. And next slide. IT, we love IT. One of the things that we do within the city is the city's known for taking some risks, and not, I don't want to say risks, but taking some courage in the artificial intelligence world within government technology. One of the areas that we are doing that, and we're a development partner with a company called Darwin AI. If you think of, you have McAfee for your internet security, think of Darwin AI as your AI security. So we know that our staff is using AI, and we want them to do so responsibly. And we want to make sure that they're not putting anyone's information out into the AI world. So that's what Darwin does for us, is it allows us to see what is being used and codifies our policy to ensure that any violations of it are caught before it goes out. That makes sense. So great program, great development partner. And we have an AI subcommittee that works that. So every 6 months, we relook at our charter to see if we're going in the right direction with AI and adding new tools. Next slide. Parks and Recs. We stood up at Parks and Rec. Are we 2 years now, Sarah? 3 years? Are we 3.5? All right. Parks has been doing great work. We did not have a Parks department beforehand, and it's great to have Sarah on board and her staff. Our citizens expect great park services, and she's been building that out from literally scratch. And there's been some learning along the way and some processes along the way, but that department's really getting squared away, and it's fun to watch, especially as our parks during the summer are just full. Doesn't matter which one you go to at any one time. So great work with Sarah and her crew. Next slide. Planning community development. That first bullet is fairly significant. We ranked 3rd in the state in terms of permit efficiency for timelines. Which is an interesting thing, because I know I get complaints every once in a while that we're not efficient. And I'm like, we're 3rd best in the state. I don't know what that means for other cities, but I think we do a pretty dang good job. So we did some automated code enforcement, completed traffic impact analysis within the planning community. Planning community development, we're also looking at some AI tools that would really make permitting very, very efficient, both on the user side and on the planner side. So excited to see how that works out over this next year. Next slide. Police department. The city of Lake Stevens over the last several years has ranked in the top 10 safest cities in the state. I think that's a great accolade to our chief and our great officers who do work in our community. The chief runs a Special Olympics event, the Polar Plunge, every year. If you don't know what the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is, it's a task force that deals with the most heinous of crimes against children. And our very own Detective Parnell received some accolades for her work in that area. Yeah, good stuff. Next slide. Public Works accomplishments. We talked about the 10,000 plus work orders done. We did a lot of sidewalks this last year, as well as ADA ramps, ADA ramp fixes. We listened to citizens about speeds and issues on the south end of the lake, and implemented a 3-way stop on the South Lake Stevens Road and Machias Cutoff. Our Public Works has done several presentations at APWA and TLG, talking about our accreditation process and what that's done for our city, and how that's changed our city. I think one of the best things is I complained long enough about the ratty little trees that were on 20th Street around the trestle station, and they went out and replaced them all so they can actually grow and be healthy. So we'll keep an eye on those. It's a gateway to our city, and it should look, so they did a great job on that. Next slide. Our TIB. So several years ago, the great citizens of the city, I think there's something we can all admit, that we don't have enough sidewalks inside the city, right? So several years ago, we went to the voters with a list of prioritized sidewalks, mainly looking at sidewalks to schools, safety issues. And since then, we've been building out a lot of sidewalks and with the money that comes in from that sales tax increase. We also did some pavement preservation with it. This last year, we did the Main Street improvement, finished that up all the way down to the Boys and Girls Club. I think Main Street looks wonderful now with the new lighting and the new sidewalks downtown. It's cleaned it up quite a bit. This next year, is that on this slide? This next year, we're going to do, here we go. Thank you. So this next year, we'll be doing a multi-use path on 17th Avenue and then 91st Street. So from Lake Stevens Middle School south to 20th along 91st, that will get a multi-use path as well. So from you could get your Costco hot dog and walk to Taco Bell and get your chalupa all on sidewalks if you wanted to. You probably need to do that walk anyway. Next slide. Some of the capital projects we did in 25, the Main Street improvement, Bayview Trail, the non-motorized road dock at North Cove. We did a lot of thermoplastic crosswalks. We did some pavement preservation and ADA improvements. And then our goals for this next year, we're going to put sewer infrastructure, go back to that one. Sewer infrastructure down 131st to get sewer into our industrial area. And then we'll do another phase of Bayview Trail. We're currently working on phase 2 of Frontier Heights Park, putting some synthetic turf up there, some pickleball fields. We will do some more pavement preservation on the east side of the lake and just some more sidewalks and ADA where we need to. The council, we are also looking at implementing a traffic safety camera program within our school zones. So you might see that kick off sometime this year. We'll have to see how that plans out. Next slide. Long time coming. We broke ground on January 27th for a new building called Mill, what do we call it? The Mill Landing. What? Mill Spur Yard. And that will have incorporated in it the museum from our historical society, as well as some retail space in there. And it'll be literally about 100 yards that way. It'll be a beautiful building downtown. Looking forward to that going up, getting the museum back into their home, and having some space down here for our citizens to eat dinner or have a cup of coffee. Next slide. I mentioned it earlier, we are going to move City Hall this year. If you don't know where it's at, if you know where the police station is, down by Tom Thumb and the subway building, we own that, all 4 buildings of that now, and we're going to move City Hall into the front building. And that will allow us to vacate down here. We'll probably get rid of the main City Hall building, move it out, and create some more parking downtown because we need parking downtown. So that will be a plus for us. And then it will also help us just to consolidate a lot of our work into one complex. Next slide. These are some of the great events that are within our city throughout the year. We have the egg hunt coming up, and I think that we're filling close to 4 billion eggs this weekend, or when is that? 16,000. Oh, that's close. Okay. 16,000 eggs. So if you have feel like wanting to do this a lot, come on down. You can help us out. We've got the Old Fashioned 4th and the Aquafest, which is always a great event for the city, obviously. And then we'll be having the farmers market as well this summer. Next slide. If you want more information on a lot of our projects, we use a company called Zen City that you can go in and you can see what the status is, say, on the 91st sidewalks. We have a page on that. Our project manager, depending upon where the project is, that's where they'll do their updates there, and you can get a lot of information. we have some great partners. I do a once a month leaders roundtable. Do it right here. And these are many of the organizations that come to that leaders roundtable, and we share ideas and share what's going on within the city. And it helps us to network and kind of see what everyone's doing. Great partners there. Next slide. And that's the end of the state of the city. I'll open up to questions.
If you have a question, raise your hand, we'll bring you a mic, so.
Yeah.
Anybody remote can hear.
Go ahead.
Program for safety cameras.
Yeah, so several cities have implemented them already. They would be a traffic speed camera that would issue a ticket in school zones. And we're looking at about 4 different school zones to put those in.
It's not. Flock's good, right?
That's different than flock. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Are we gonna finish paving North Lake Shore Drive? It looks like half of it got paved and then the other half just kind of got left behind.
From, say, Mitchell North.
From, yes, from town, just leaving town here. in
Yeah.
North Lake Shore.
So we went as far as we could with the money we had. And then I know the sewer district did half of it last year from some of the test holes they were doing, but to do the rest at this point, it's not on our schedule. Yeah. Any others? Great. Hey, well, I will tell you this, I enjoy being the mayor. I enjoy being the mayor of a city that is an active city, that is a community-oriented city, that is a family city. There's just so many kids and families. I've enjoyed my time being the mayor, and it makes it easy for me when I have great citizens who are volunteering, who are committing their time, who are doing all that they do as citizens, because it just makes my time easy. And even more so, I'm super, super blessed to have just incredible staff who will sometimes raise an eyebrow wondering what I'm talking about, and then do some clarification and then run with that idea. And just would like to thank all of them. And I'd like to thank the council as well. You guys are doing a great job. A lot of new faces, a lot of new education. And I will say this about the council right now, especially the new members. I've been very impressed with the learning, the questions, and really the humility that you guys have been showing to jump into a new area that you may not be comfortable with. So thank you. And that's all I have. Thank you. All right. So
Mayor,
go ahead.
could we do just a 4-minute recess to reset?
I'm going to turn this off. You want me to what?
Just do a quick recess so we can reset.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody,
Yeah, we're going to do a 5.
5 minutes?
Let's take 5. Let's take 10. Let's get crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take 10. Totally. All right, let's go ahead and kick this meeting back off. And can I get, we're going to go into some, we got a department report. So let's do our department report with Sarah and in-kind donation update.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Sarah Garso, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here to give a department report for the special event in-kind donation program and specifically an update for our largest city event, upcoming Aquafest. When I last came to council with the special event in-kind donation program or contribution program, I apologize. It was 1 month ago, February 24th. And as you remember, what we did was with the program, go ahead and decide that what staff could approve internally is up to a 50% mill donation rate and straight time for staff, but we specifically excluded the overtime for staff. And that was to help encompass the majority of events that happen throughout the year, with the understanding that Aquafest would come back as well as any other larger events that had specific requests so that council could review overtime as well as any cash donations or other items that are requested from the event. So what we'll have on next week's agenda, March 31st, is the actual detail of what Aquafest is requesting in support from the city. We did have a meeting just yesterday, Monday, met for about an hour and a half with the Parks Department, who also represented Public Works, and two representatives from the Police Department, as well as a handful of board members from Aquafest. And we looked through the updated Excel sheet that we also mailed out to council, showing the most accurate details that we have available for all costs that the city has incurred for Aquafest and has supported in the past. So that includes items such as consumables, which is garbage bags. It includes the rental of dumpsters and waiver of fees, as well as the value of rented items. And we show that because if the city didn't provide them, it would need to be rented from a company. And so that is why we list all of those items out. We then added a column for what now falls under the staff approval of in-kind, as well as the items that would need to come over to council. So you'll see that the items coming to council are consumable items, dumpster rentals, as well as overtime for staff. Now, this is the first spreadsheet and time that we have as a city, as the Parks Department split out all of the straight time, separate from overtime staffing support. We simply don't have those records for prior years. We could create it, but it would take quite a bit of staff time to go back and do that. So when we met with Aquafest, we went through all of these items to help understand how the city makes decisions, why we provided certain things in the past, and also talk to the Aquafest board members about different options available and really understand what they need versus what we've just been doing. So with police specifically, we discussed the level of support, intersections that police are provided at. So for instance, volunteers can be used on run routes, on low volume intersections, but police are used in the high volume in risk intersections to ensure that cars don't drive around. So we've opened a discussion about what are those intersections and is there any movement that could happen. We're not suggesting or trying to say reroute your areas, but an understanding that, hey, maybe there would be options if there was a reroute of the children's parade, for instance, or the Aqua Run. So they're looking at that information. The Kiwanis Beer Garden is separate. That does occur during Aquafest Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but it happens over behind Jay's. That separate event has a contract police service because it's a beer garden, and that portion is reimbursable. We misspoke a month ago, and staff on the park side was a little confused about what was reimbursed, what was not. All of the public police support for Aquafest itself is not reimbursed. That has been provided. And so I wanted to make sure that was understood. Although the beer garden is billed separately for the Kiwanis, of course, there's just more traffic in general. People are here for Aquafest. They were also visiting the beer garden. There may have been lingering folks out past when the carnival ended. And so staffing on the police side was scheduled to end at 2 o'clock in the past years. they're going to reevaluate that without the Kiwanis having a beer garden this year, as they announced that they won't, as there may be an opportunity to schedule police to be off the clock earlier than 2 a.m. Of course, in our spreadsheets, we're planning for worst case scenario instead of being limited and then having to hold people over their shifts. So Aquafest is one of the things they are going to look at is modifying and shortening the children's parade route. They have a lot of logistics they'll have to look at with that, but that is one of the things that we discussed, as it would reduce one additional street closure and the police staffing for that parade. We also discussed the Parks and Public Works staffing. Aquafest is working to secure a green team. What a green team is they do the trash management throughout the event. Last year, there was no solid green team, although efforts were made. So I'm saying this strongly. If anybody knows people that want to help volunteer or contribute to that, please reach out to Aquafest. I know they're working on that and have a really solid lead this year, but it's never too much to have more offers coming through. With the green team being secured, the after-hour needs for parks or public works overtime to manage the garbage through the event could be eliminated. Last year, we had 2 staff provided on the heaviest of nights. With this, we feel comfortable in talking to Aquafest that 1 staff could be provided to do that. So that'll be a reduction coming forward from the spreadsheet already sent out to what is coming into this next week. We did also talk about the flushing restrooms. Flushing restrooms are very hard when you have a high volume. Too much toilet paper is used, it's flushing too much, things get stuck, and it's difficult to manage flushing restrooms. There is an option to close flushing restrooms and during large events funnel the public to portable toilets. This could be an option for eliminating 1 more overtime staff from the Public Works parks. The preference would be to keep those open. However, that is an option that will come forward to council to decide. Other costs we discussed were cones. Public Works and Parks do not own enough cones to set up all of the run routes and closures at max capacity. And so for the past few years, 100 additional cones have been rented. Aquafest realized that they could add this to their rental bill, and with the company they're ordering from and the quantity that they're renting, they could also get it at a fraction of the price as to what we have been paying. And so they've already removed that from the list and said that they will order that with their equipment. That already was a cost savings of $900 that the city has wrote the bill for. So that was a great collaborative discussion and offer from Aquafest. Parks is also working with Waste Management to clarify which of the trash bins and dumpsters are donated versus paid for. It's been a little inconsistent in prior years. Last year, we had the bins donated, but the dumpsters billed. And there's other years where the dumpsters were not billed and the bins cost money. So we're getting that clarified in advance right now and hope to have an answer by next council meeting so that we can discuss that item as well. I believe that is the high level items that we discussed. We are speaking with Aquafest, working directly with them. Staff has continually attended their once a month meetings, so we have a good idea of how Aquafest runs in the back end. We are not pressuring Aquafest to tell us to reduce staff, but simply opening the door to say, hey, let's have this discussion. I also let them know in the last meeting, I'm not to speak on your behalf because you'll be able to speak here in a minute, but the city's desire is not to stop Aquafest or to hand them a $40,000 bill. But we do have to look at our expenses as a whole throughout the city and just have the discussions to say what can move. And then specifically overtime and consumables will now need to be approved by council.
Great. Any questions, Sarah?
I just want to thank everyone involved for working together to reduce costs overall. Reducing, we think of it sometimes as waste, right? If we're able to cut some things or change how they're handled and save, money on both sides, I think that's commendable. So I want to thank all those involved working on this.
Nathan?
You gave us a lot of good information. Sorry, can you clarify what's different next week? What are you bringing next week versus what you just shared today?
We will have another spreadsheet in Excel.
Okay.
clearly listing the items still being requested. So for instance, the cones would be removed. We are also working with police department right now to identify any adjustments and anticipated schedule. And then with the decisions just happening last night about the reducing to 1 instead of 2 staff on overtime for pulling trash, that'll be incorporated as well.
Okay, and so then next week you're going to ask essentially for a line by line, which things does the council approve, which things do they not, et cetera. Is that your objective?
The objective is to ask council if they want to approve the whole thing.
Okay,
Or if you're looking for any kind of additional work to reduce numbers. Any very large changes, I would highly recommend that we do push off to 2027 to ensure it doesn't have a major impact this year. But really just make sure there's an understanding. Another option we haven't discussed out loud, but if it was the council's desire to completely cut out all overtime for the public works and parks, there could be an opportunity for the council to discuss a financial contribution, and then Aquafest would be able to hire out labor at a reduced rate. City staff are very expensive. Once you add in all of the insurance and benefits and recognize it is at the overtime rate, you're looking at $108 an hour on average. And so those are just decisions that the council has. And so it could be support Aquafest at the same level, go and proceed, or if council wants to look at any line items, we could do that way also.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of things. Yes. First, a kind of a note on process, because the only time we talked about this subject was a discussion item. So I don't feel we had we did not make any decisions as a council, and it feels like we started a conversation and then there was a process implemented that kind of took some of that direction and put forward an administrative decision based on council, but not council action. So I would appreciate if we make any decisions on policies that are pertaining to council, to have it be an action item so that the public can be made aware of, can be here, can comment, we can be prepared. But it was kind of, so I guess that's my note on process. And a question on, is this, so we supported Aquafest last year, but it was not incorporated in the 2026 budget. And this next meeting will be a budget amendment for the overtime. Is that my understanding?
No, I would not say that that's an entirely accurate
Okay.
statement. The parks budget was not reduced between 2025 and 2026.
Okay.
The only budget that I know of that was drastically reduced was the streets department, and streets department does have some overtime coding that would come to this. When we work with our union for overtime between parks and public works, it's based on seniority and who volunteers. And so it could be any one of those budget items that it touches. And then I do not believe that the police department saw a reduction for their overtime budget item also.
Okay.
So this is more council approval for allowing us to spend the money on this event specifically.
And it's already in the 2026 budget for an amount. Okay.
Overtime is its own line item. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's not a line item that you'll see that specifically says Aquafest, just.
Right. I didn't see it, but
Yes, correct.
my question was more if we've done it last year and incorporated it in the 26 budget in the various departments, then I think the conversation, is it an amendment for this year's budget, or are we talking about the 27 budget? It seems like some of the conversations I've heard were, it's impacting this budget, it's very fast, so I was curious about whether it's going to be an amendment to add to the budget or if it's already been, okay.
I would say it's not in a ask to approve a supplemental budget in the future.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the information. Appreciate it. A couple of questions, but I don't need answers tonight. I think the answers would be helpful when we have this action item next week. If we were to consider a financial donation, my assumption would be that it wouldn't be that $40,000 because that's paying for city staff, that's paying for city equipment. It's likely that those services could be purchased cheaper. So I would like to know what the recommended financial contribution option might be. And then I thank you for asking that question, Councilmember Araya. I have the same question. Are we looking at costs when we look at the dollar amounts that council needs to approve? Are those over and above what's already been budgeted? It sounds like the answer is no.
If you did a cash, then yes. And what you may consider doing is looking at, if you want to balance it, is what overtime line items does it reduce
Okay.
in order to shift the money?
Okay. And then my last question, which you may have an answer for now. I just want to make sure I understand. For the items that council needs to review and approve, the consumables, the dumpsters, the overtime, are those items that Aquafest is asking to have, or are those items that the city is stating these need to be in place in order for you to have this activity occur?
Some are optional and some are not. And so Aquafest, to be clear, has not requested any of these items. This is where over the last 3 years, the city Parks Department mainly has actually started creating lists of all city support across all events because we didn't have numbers before or anything to analyze. And so this list was created based on the city support that has been provided over the past few years. And we've added to it to try to make it a very clear picture.
Okay.
And so what would be optional is the Public Works Parks overtime, simply because trash services could be provided in a different way and flush restrooms could be shut down with porta potties coming in or people hired in order to clean those restrooms in lieu of full-time staff.
I think maybe next week when we look at the full picture, if there was a way to indicate which items are required, that would be helpful.
Great, I will do that and then work also with police to see what is required versus what might be supplemented by other
Great.
services.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Any other questions?
I just have a quick one, really quick. So with the in-kind donation adjustment that we made to that policy, that's just strictly for the rental of the facilities. Is that correct?
You made 2 adjustments. So now the mill is a 50%. So that will be coming forward to say, do you approve the other 50%? And then also the overtime staff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ryan.
Yeah. Sarah, do you know what the economic benefit is to the city during Aquafest? How much influx of cash comes into the city, the businesses?
The city has not performed that, and I am unaware if Aquafest has run that. There are metrics in the special event world to quantify and create that data. But I don't believe that any real surveys have been done on site, and I don't know that the standard metric for that has been applied. That would be a lift for staff. I do not believe we could get it by 3/31, but we can certainly work with Aquafest to create that for the future.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to have that number, not necessarily by the 31st, but if we can get some kind of a swag on that, that would be helpful.
How much more beer do you sell?
All the stuff we donate to the beer garden. So it's not really selling it. Yeah, we can start with that. We'll do an in-kind donation of 10,000 gallons of beer. That'll float us to day one anyway.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and thread the needle on this because I know you are actively working with Aquafest and more concrete details will be forthcoming. But so kind of start with Councilmember Araya's point about process. For me, our last meeting when we spoke about this, I think one of the places where my understanding was less than perfect was how prepared some of these events, Aquafest in particular, were to absorb these policy changes. It sounds now, having talked about as a council, giving you direction that was not as expected as maybe I thought it was after that meeting. And if I understood what you said, you're kind of recommending that maybe we don't make any big changes this year because we don't know what kind of effect that would have. To that, I have reached out to some people, talked about it. My understanding is that the Aquafest leadership is rapidly coming up on certain deadlines where they need to make decisions about, can they commit to certain things to put on the event? And if they can't, then quite frankly, the event won't happen. So I guess the first question I have is it fair to say, based on your discussion so far, the number we expect to see next week is less than the 47,000 as far as, financial support from the city?
Yes, there has already been some movement to reduce that.
Okay. And then with the understanding that we don't have actual numbers, there's probably more discussion to happen. I guess I would just kind of float this to the rest of the council to make sure Aquafest can happen this year. I mean, is there a hard line for anybody that would have a problem supporting the event at a number less than the 47,000 that we supported at last year? Just, again, keeping in mind there's some wiggle room there, but to kind of give Aquafest leadership that ability, that confidence to do what they need to do to make sure the event happens. So if anyone wants to answer that.
I would
please.
be reluctant to answer that
Okay.
because we're not able to take action tonight. And I would, as much as I would love to give any sort of assurance, I would also really not want to give somebody any sort of false hope that
Mhm.
we're saying, yeah, maybe, without the right numbers in front of us.
I just had one question. Kind of goes back to Councilmember McManus. So the Kiwanis is not doing the beer garden anymore, correct? Has anyone else shown interest, or is it just not going to happen this year?
I have not asked that direct question. My understanding is the separate beer garden will not happen. Last year, Aquafest did start a small beer garden inside of its event, and I'm trying to get eye contact. I believe that is continuing. Yes, we have a confirmation. So inside, there will be a small one where the VIP section used to be, which was the observation deck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Sarah?
Great job, Sarah.
Yeah, great work, Sarah. And we appreciate your collaboration with the Aquafest folks to make sure that happens again this year. All right, let's go to, can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda? And remember that we're moving 8G to an action item.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Second.
Oh, that's me. So I have a motion to pass the consent agenda and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Have our new park board commissioners jump through all the different things they have to do to assume, or because this kind of within our packet says that it may be, they may be all the way through, it may not be all the way through. So do we have 2 new park board commissioners?
Yes, we do. Everything's been cleared. I just wanted to, just in case there was a delay, but they've been cleared and they are very excited if this happens.
Okay, I would like to congratulate them. Kelly Alexander and Amelia Dixon, congratulations and thank you for stepping forward to serve your city.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, let's go to 8G and
Mayor.
the Feldman and Lee Public Defense Contract Amendment. I think we have Gene online. who-
Mayor, we need to do citizen comments.
What?
Citizen comments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot the lucky number 7.
Yep.
Let's go back to lucky number 7 and do citizens comments. I don't have any green sheets. Is there anybody online who wishes to provide citizens comments?
Anyone online that would like to address the council for citizens comments, please raise your digital hand. I don't see any hands up.
Okay, and I know I don't have any green sheets, but is there anybody who wishes to provide comments tonight? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move forward then to 8G, Feldman and Lee Public Defense Contract. Gene, do you want to take the floor?
Absolutely. Good evening, council and mayor and members of the public. We have a agreement with Feldman and Lee to do our public defense for the city of Lake Stevens, and we've had this for numerous years. And we had an update that we put into place a couple of years ago where their monthly fee would be $14,000 a year, and that was for 2024. In 2025, it went up to $15,000 a year. And for 26, it was planned to be at $16,000 a year. There was new legislation that came out saying that the caseload per public defender need to be reduced. And I understand Greg's on the horn or on the phone as well, so I'll let him talk about those case reduction numbers. But we did go into a negotiation with Feldman and Lee to renegotiate that contract because we're supposed to be reducing the caseload around 10% is my understanding every year. And to do that, that means they have to hire more public defenders, and it's around $120,000, is my understanding, per public defender. And so to cover that cost, we negotiated a new agreement, and we came to agreement that $28,500 per month would be the new amount that we would be paying them to provide this public defense service. I will at this point in time turn it over to Greg to talk about caseload and answer any questions about the new legislation.
Sorry, Gene, really quick. How much did you say per public defender?
28,500 per month.
No, how, that was for the month, right? How much did you say per, I thought I heard 120,000. Is that what I heard?
That's what I was.
Okay, thank you. I thought I heard 120K. Okay, there we go. That raised my eyebrows a bit. Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up a bit on what Gene commented about. Sorry for the siren in the background. There we go. It's not legislation. Our state Supreme Court over the past few years has been establishing rules for public defense. And this last year, they passed some additional rules that mandated a significant reduction in the number of cases that an individual public defender would take. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers in front of me tonight. I can get them to you if you would like to see those. There was quite a bit of discussion because most public entities just didn't have the available funds to finance the reduction that the Supreme Court was mandating. And so later on last year, the court issued a new order. This is while negotiations were going on between the city and Feldman and Lee that allowed cities to implement a 10-year schedule, a maximum 10 years to achieve the reductions that the Supreme Court is mandating. And we need to implement that at a 10% reduction in caseload every year. Our firm looked at the rule. There was quite a bit of consternation in the legal community as exactly what the Supreme Court was demanding. But our opinion was that no reduction in caseload was required for 2026. And the first reduction would have to occur in 2027. So there was no required caseload reduction in 2026. The public defenders, defense community, and probably Jen, I did not participate in the negotiations, but I'm sure Gene faced this in his discussions with Feldman and Lee, in that because up to the last minute, they were concerned that they did have to make a reduction, and some of their demand was based on the fact that they thought they were probably going to have to hire somebody new in 2026. But that's not going to have to happen, at least as far as we know. Part of the additional funds that they wanted were to enable them in the event that they receive pressure from the state Supreme Court, or we receive pressure from the Supreme Court, that they do have to reduce their caseload, that we won't have to renegotiate our contract. But they're under pressure right now. Public defense services have been scrutinized by both the state legislature and the Supreme Court, as well as the State Bar Association. So they're having to provide a quality of service probably greater than they've had to provide in the past. But anyway, this particular contract has a significant increase, but it does cover our base in the event that there are additional rule changes or clarification by the Supreme Court during this contract year. We're not going to have to go back and renegotiate that contract and probably puts us in a position where we're going to have to be next year, where in fact they are going to have to have a 10% reduction in the caseload of the individual attorneys at Feldman and Lead who service the city of Lake Stevens. So that's all I have right now. Gene, you have anything to add on top of that?
No, just that we did anticipate this adjustment for 2026. We didn't know what the actual number was going to be, but we do have budget to cover this.
Thank you. I have a quick question. If they do not need to make any adjustments in 2026 and the adjustments don't start in 2027, do we anticipate an additional increase in 2027 or no, this cost increase will cover those anticipated increased costs?
I think that they will probably push for another increase in 2027 is what I'm anticipating, to continue that trend of 10% a year reduction.
Would we have leverage in that conversation to not increase the budget if they don't achieve a 10% reduction this year, if they don't hire additional staff?
Our leverage would be to go back out and put this out to bid. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of organizations out there that do this work. So the chance of coming back with a different public defender wouldn't be high. And they do provide a really good service, and they have for years for the city. But that is one thing that the city could do, is go back out to bid for services.
Thank you.
I have a question. How many cases were handled in 2025 total?
Don't know that I have that off the top of my head.
Cases per attorney, but I'm just trying to get an idea of the how many total do we handle a year? Is it 400? Is it 800? Is it, do we have one attorney, two attorneys? I'm just trying to gauge. So you don't have to answer, I guess, today, but
Yeah.
I would appreciate that number.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have those numbers in front of me tonight, but we can assemble those numbers for you as we have further discussion on this, which we're probably going to have.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so just quick numbers, really quick. 12,000 increase per month. That's 136,000 increase per year. That seems like that would have to be a pretty substantial decrease in their caseload. So I just kind of wanted to mention those numbers so that we can come back to that, because I think it would have to be a huge decrease for us to justify $120,000 a year increase. I mean, maybe I'm just not used to seeing that large of a number, but it just seems like a big increase to me.
We're basically paying for an additional public defender.
Yeah.
I would hope it's two at that rate.
Salary.
I mean, the public defenders I know are public, not in private, so maybe it's a little different, but.
Yeah, one of the areas that I think that we need to continue to pound on is the legislature. This is we need to have some funding from the legislature to cover these sorts of decisions out of Supreme Court that directly impact city government. So I know there was a slight conversation quickly pushed to the side in this legislative session, but it needs to be one that we need to work on in the next session as well.
And so really quick, sorry if I missed it here. So have they already staffed up? Is that what's happened here, or they're anticipating the need to staff up for this?
They're anticipating the need, and they've been trying to find another public defender, but they have not hired anybody as of a couple of weeks ago when we negotiated this deal.
So I guess, why is it retroactive then? They haven't hired anybody new. What are we paying for from January to now?
That was part of the deal point of getting the contract updated, and they will have to hire somebody, obviously, to do the work, but that was part of the deal point. The other option was to end the agreement and go out to bid for this year.
So basically, they held our feet to the fire, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Yeah. Nathan, did you have something?
Yeah, so, I mean, is there any reason to believe that this trend isn't going to continue for the next 10 years? I mean, what's the numbers on that? That's an extra $1 million a year, 10 years out from now?
Ask the Supreme Court.
Okay, but we're assuming that every year we're going to see that kind of an increase, not 80% increase, but 12.5K per month increase.
No, I don't think so. Because it's not going to be, because we do have 10 years to implement on the current schedule. I think that the biggest impact is in the initial year. But should we have concern that this is going to be a trend and that there will be further orders from the court with respect to public defense? Yes, I think that's a very valid assumption, and it's a problem that did not get resolved this year. It's still holding out, and yeah, I think it's one of those things that's probably going to have to require some legislation in the next few years.
Do we have any idea how many other cities Feldman and Lee contracts with for this service?
Well, I don't know. Gene, do you know? It's quite a few.
It is. Yeah,
most of the cities in Snohomish County.
Correct.
So the table on page 42 of the packet, is that actual numbers of the current caseload and then what it would take to get down to 120, or is that just a representative table to help us understand the types of change that we're looking at? Because you said, Greg or Gene, we shouldn't expect to see this kind of change every year, but the table here is suggesting they currently have a 400 cases caseload, and they've got to get it down to 120. So there's no reason why they wouldn't need to hire those kind of additional resources year in and year out for the next 10 years to get to where they need to go.
Especially if we're paying ahead of hirings.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a head per, well, maybe not at that same rate, but at least every 2 or 3 years based on those reductions. So
This is why it's helpful to have 24, 25 numbers so that we can gauge, because my understanding, this is the law applied in the 10-year increment, and I may be wrong, but right now the maximum allowed of cases per attorney is 400. They want to get
Yes.
it 120 in 10 years. And this is just representative of what the expected minimum or maximum caseloads would be. But it would be good to know 24, 25, how many were actually handled from us.
And do we typically do just an annual contract? Do we look at multi-year contracts and potential savings by doing something multi-year?
We've had a multi-year in the past with an escalator, which is what I read at the beginning. And it escalated from 2014 up from 14,000 to 16,000. And now, because of this new rule that came out, they are jumping to the 28.5.
Anything else for Gene? Thank you. All right, with that, can I entertain a motion to pass this contract?
I have one more question.
All right, let's do it.
What are the implications if this contract is not approved?
Do you want me to answer that, Greg?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll take a stab at it. So right now, just so everybody's clear, we're out of contract with Feldman Lee. It expired at the end of last year, and they're still doing the work for us. So we'd have to pay them for those services. But if we went back out, you're talking having to put the advertisement together, go out to bid. A couple months later, we'd get somebody on board, and there's a good chance that it might be Feldman and Lee, and they came in at a higher number, and we negotiated it down to 28.5. So the risk we run is going through the process and still getting the same firm at a higher dollar amount than we have in front of us today.
Yeah.
Gene,
Yeah, the big problem, as Gene mentioned, is there isn't a lot of attorneys in this particular market. And so to a certain extent, a degree, yes, Feldman Lee has some leverage in negotiation based on that, because who else you going to get? The worst case scenario is if we did not approve the contract, is that Feldman Lee would say, okay, we're done. And and we would have to find someone to, at least on a temporary basis, pick up the caseload, which may be very difficult because, and cost us more money to be able to do that, because those that might be willing to do it are probably going to want to charge more money than Feldman Lee is. So we're not in a very, to be honest and upfront, we're not in a very good situation with respect to finding someone else. And that although this is quite a significant jump in the contract price, the reality is it's something that we're just going to have to bear. If it's not with Feldman and Lee, it's going to be with somebody else.
Yeah, so Jean, you said that the contract expired. On this staff report, it says that the current existing contract expires December 31st of 2026. So what's correct? Is it over, or are we still in contract till December? And then also, if we are still in contract, what's keeping us from saying, let's finish our contract and come back with next year's information for an increase?
There was a provision in the existing contract that said that if the Supreme Court, because it was anticipated that the Supreme Court was going to come out with additional rules, and we didn't know what they were going to be. So there was a provision in the existing agreement that said, just like there is in this amendment, that if the Supreme Court further mucks with this, then the defender has the right to request renegotiation of the agreement.
Yeah,
So
they have
that,
the right to. And I
yes,
see that clause, is listed here, that they have the right to be, to renegotiate the contract.
right.
But I guess if we say we don't really see a need to renegotiate right now, we appreciate your request.
No, well, that clause gives them the right.
That's what I'm
If we
asking.
can't, yeah, if we can't come to a deal, they have the right to terminate.
Would they do that though, I guess is the ultimate question. Are
Yeah,
they
we-
going to terminate a contract longstanding that we've worked with for so long? I feel like we oftentimes play it really, really safe, in the sense that, we don't fix anything that isn't broken. And I guess I think that we need to, in my opinion, we need to be a little bit more financially aware of what we're jumping into without seeing, the fine print, because this is just one of many, many, many things that is, likely to increase over the next 10 years. And if just because, one attorney or legal defender company is been working with us forever, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stay with them. Now, if there are other options out there, exploring them will not hurt, I don't think, at least so we know where we are with, what's being proposed to us, versus what some of the other options are. It's easy for us to say, well, we're probably going to get a higher rate than it is to just actually see what those options are.
I would like to propose, well, first, to open it up for discussion, I'm going to move to authorize the mayor to sign the Feldman and Lee contract for Public Defense Services Amendment 5.
Second.
I would like to propose that given that this dollar amount is budgeted, there's no negative, there's a negative impact to the budget. It's already been approved. And that we're sort of up against it. Like, we don't have an option today to go with another firm. We don't have an option. The RFP process would take months. And I think, knowing what I know about public defense throughout the state of Washington, it's a crisis right now. And so the likelihood of another public defense like agreeing to take on more work and at a lower price. I think that's low, but I think that we should use this year to explore what the other options are. Let's explore what are the other firms in Snohomish County? Are there other firms that we could have a conversation with? Is there leverage? Are there negotiating options? But I think we should pass this tonight so that we continue to provide folks in our community that need public defense services. So there isn't an interruption in those services, and that we explore what 2027 options we might have.
As a former prosecutor, my sympathy for public defenders is limited, but I will say they do fill an important constitutional role, and it sounds like for the time being, this is really the only game in town, and it's not a service we can afford to go without if we want an effective police department. So I agree with Councilmember Jorstad that I think this is something we have to pass, and if we want to look at other options, if there are any down the road, then he should absolutely do that. But for the time being, it sounds kind of like this is it.
And I guess I'm still kind of hung up on the part that we're still in contract. So they can void the contract if we don't renegotiate with them.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Gene, to refresh my memory, their initial number was over 30K, right?
Gene, did you catch me?
No, I couldn't hear you.
Their initial offer on this was over 30K.
That's correct. And we've been working with them for almost 6 months on this. So we have been negotiating back and forth, and they did tell me that they were going to walk away from the contract if we didn't come to an agreement, and they hated to lose us, but they also need to be able to hire new employees. So I appreciate the council member comments, and I'm happy to go back out and try and see what else is out there for options, but they were ready to walk and I kept them in play. Otherwise we wouldn't even have a public defender currently.
Any other discussion on this motion?
Yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Jorstad that we should pass it this year and look at options. We may find out when we do some research that this is the best option, right? So to avoid interruption and an impact on our citizens, I think we should pass it. Agreement.
I think I agree. I think there's an and, because I like where you're going, Councilmember Edwards, right? I'm not eager to just take it, even though it's in the budget, right? It still bothers me. So part of what I would like to see then is also the multi-year, right? I'm not saying we need to go pursue a multi-year agreement, but can they give us indication of, yeah, we expect we're going to need to hire X number over the next 10 years. This is how we project that's going to look. Obviously, they're not going to lock anything in, but I want to know, right, what does the next 10 years look like realistically, so that we can at least have an idea of what the impact is on our budget, and we can go talk. I would also be interested in exploring creative solutions. Is there a countywide consortium that we can pull together and say, hey, we can do a countywide contract? Or I don't know, right? But why are each of us individual cities negotiating with them? Can we do something at a broader scale and find cost savings by doing it that way? I mean, I think we need to start looking at things that can be done in addition to putting pressure on our state legislature.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? What was that? A blip. All right, motion passes. All right, let's go to council business. Council President.
Thank you. I'll start and we'll just go this way. I don't have anything for this evening. Thank you. Councilmember Araya.
No report from you this week.
Thank you. Councilmember McManus. That's a lot of M's.
That is a lot of hands,
Mhm.
isn't it? Yeah. Had a great meeting with Chamber of Commerce this week. They're going through a reorg, trying to make them a more powerful voice for the city. They are the economic impact, if you will, right? So working with them on some of the ideas that they have and to try and help them with that. Also met with Sherwood Services, kind of got a better scope of what they do. Personally, we've always been involved with them from a philanthropy standpoint from the brewery. They're a big benefactor of ours. So we've got some promotions that are going to come up with them. It's a good organization if you guys don't know it. They're in town here. There's a lot of things that they need help with. So I'm going to keep an eye on that and stay more in tune with that, but it's a great organization.
Great.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donahue.
Yes, I attended the Planning Commission meeting last week. It was a great meeting, lots of good discussion, focused on the sub areas within the city and updating the sub areas, the policies so that they better align with the comprehensive plan, and expect at some point that will work its way back to us. That's all I have.
Thanks, Councilwoman Shipman.
Yes, I attended the school board meeting on the 11th. Like always, their first meeting of the month, they honor both students from all of our secondary schools as well as staff. It's a packed house, standing room only, which is just awesome to see the support of the community for these award winners. The common theme, a lot of times I try and pick out a quote that cracked me up. The common theme without a doubt was just thankfulness. They were also grateful to go to our school district. They all had varying goals. Some had no idea what they wanted to do after school. Others had very definitive things they wanted to do. But just every single one of them was so grateful to go to Lake Stevens. So I thought that really stood out. The other thing I just wanted to touch base on was I was on the park board committee, and I wanted to thank everyone who came out and applied to be part of our Parks Board. It's a big responsibility. This is a volunteer position, and we had enough people apply for it that we actually had to interview and choose who to appoint. So I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone who applied and thank them and ask them to consider something else in the future. Also, just on a little side note, I've been meaning to bring this up. Off Highway 92 on DeGrade Road, we have our new City of Lake Stevens sign. I'm assuming that Public Works put that in, but it looks great. Coming off Highway 92 now, you know you're in Lake Stevens, where I take that road a lot, where before that sign wasn't there, kind of where the new storage units are going in. But whatever department put that in, thank you, good job. It's a nice welcoming sign to our city. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Edwards. Can you turn your microphone on, please? Thanks.
Sorry, I have a couple of things to comment on. On the note of the Planning Commission, I was able to watch that meeting. And the one thing that stood out to me is the SB 6026, which is likely going to impact us here in Lake Stevens. That's the residential housing in commercial zones. So it does look like that is going to pass. So it was interesting hearing that conversation about how that may or may not impact us here in Lake Stevens. I know that part of the concern that people have is that the residential areas will fill up and the retail or commercial will not. And so I did a little bit of digging around just to kind of compare. I know what they were comparing to Arlington, which Arlington doesn't seem to have the demand of commercial like we do here, or the need that we have here. And it sounds like it's only a 3.3 to 4% open storefronts in the whole county of Snohomish. So it just kind of eased my mind a little bit that maybe the problem that some other cities are running into with not being able to fill those retail spots in the mixed use buildings may not be as much of an issue for us. So I wanted to just share that. And then I also got to log into the Economic Alliance coffee chat last week. I did hear Rep. Lowe talk about the US2, which I appreciate the representation for that. We all know that we need some work on US2. So thank you, Rep. Lowe, since you're here. And then one other thing I wanted to share, HB 1903. So it's on the governor's desk to be signed, and it would provide low-income energy assistance to households in Washington state that meet financial guidelines to get assistance on their energy bills. This is funding directly from the Department of Commerce, and so that sounds really promising to give some relief to some of our struggling community members that might be able to take advantage of that that new program. And then lastly, I just want to say on the Aquafest note, you know, one thing that I committed to coming in here as a council member is to bring together more community organizations and to get more people involved in things here in the city. We have an amazing city, and we are so fortunate that we have so many different charitable organizations. And I'm pleased to say that this last weekend, I was able to go with Lake Stevens Pride to the Aquafest fundraising event on Friday, and Lake Stevens Pride donated $500 to Lake Stevens Aquafest. So that's just a small example of what can happen when organizations and community work together. So I wanted to thank Lake Stevens Pride, and I wanted to thank Aquafest for, working with the city to find a way to make sure that we still get to put on this really important event. So thank you.
That's great news. Thank you, Councilwoman Edwards. Councilman Packard.
Yeah, I attended the Snohomish County Committee for Improved Transportation this morning. So we talked extensively about US 2 and the different options that they're exploring there. I'll just say I'm not sure I'm fully happy about some of the solutions that they're providing. So I intend to make a phone call in the next week and dive into some more things. Ultimately, I'm just not convinced that what they're proposing will give the capacity that we need in the long term. I feel like whatever they build is in 3 years, we're going to say we need a new one, right? So I'm curious if it makes sense to bring somebody into this forum. I know they can't come into every city council, but we are as intimately connected to the trestle as anybody, right? As we're as invested as anybody. So yeah, I think there's just some discussion that needs to happen. And I know that they've solicited feedback from the broader area, right? But what can we as a community provide more direct feedback in terms of the impact on our city and our constituents, et cetera. So there's a lot of discussion going on there. And I intend to follow up, and we'll see what we can bring back to this community, either through them or I can bring something back and we can talk through it as a council. Connected to that also, there was discussion this morning of a county initiated, I'll say, transportation benefit district, which would be for unincorporated areas in 2026. So, right, we have our own transportation benefit district. The county is looking at doing something for unincorporated areas. So vehicles that are registered within any city limit would not be affected, but we have plenty of people in our community who are in unincorporated. And so if we as a council start to hear complaints from people of, hey, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Right. That is for the unincorporated people. It's going to be different than our transportation benefit, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some things going on there in that space as well.
Thank you.
All right. I had a really cool opportunity last week to go to the National League of Cities, and two takeaways from that. Actually, I wanted to talk about Councilmember Edwards. You're right about the commercial. So the commercial space, the 30,000 square feet that went in behind Tom Thumb, it was filled overnight, and they had to turn people away. So there is a need, very much so, in our community to fill commercial space. Anyway, so back to NLC. So I had a great opportunity to sit on a panel talking about the AI initiatives that we're doing within the city. There's about 200 people in the room, and I was on a panel with a scientist, which made me feel very scientific, minuscule. So it was a great panel. It was a great, really good discussion. A win that we're getting. So last year's NLC, I was on so I'm on the Transportation and Infrastructure Services board, or whatever it's called. And so we look at transportation across the country and infrastructure. I was put on a subcommittee last NLC with some folks, Gail from Colorado Springs and some other folks. And we wrote a piece of legislation with the idea that we wanted formula funding to come back straight to the locals. So think like ARPA money. We received $9 million because it was on a per capita basis, right? So we wrote this piece of legislation that said formula funding straight to the locals, bypass the thieving hands of the state and the county, and go straight to the locals, and you can do these projects. That legislation was introduced on February 9th. It's called the Basics Act. And the Congress needs to do a new transportation bill this fall because the current one goes away in the fall. So we are crossing our fingers, doing the right lobbying to make sure that that Basics Act passes. Very exciting. All right. So I have a little bomb to throw on the council. My wife and I, over the last year, have spent many nights talking, lots of deliberation and prayers, and we have made it a family decision that we are going to relocate out of the state. I will be tendering a resignation from being the mayor of Lake Stevens, and it will be effective April 13th. Let that soak in for a second. It has been such a privilege for me to be the mayor and to help build this community that I absolutely love and the citizens of this community and all their help. So it was not a light decision whatsoever. But our current family circumstances just dictate a need for change. And so we are going to make that bold decision and do so.
Congratulations. It's exciting. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Skipping that millionaire's tax on.
Well, it's all that developer money.
Can you talk through the
That's a joke, by the way.
the implications? What's the process?
Yeah, so let's talk about the next steps, right? So I will vacate the seat April 13th. That would then start a process much like filling a council member spot. The council will open up, staff will open up to the community, those who would be interested in being the mayor. If you do want to be the mayor and want to talk about what that means, I would love to sit down with you. And then after a call for applications, interviews, and then the council decides who would be the next mayor. That mayor, because this is a nonpartisan position, will fulfill my term, which will be December of 27.
So is it
Right.
while that whole process is happening? So who is it Mayor Pro Tem? Is it Gene?
So I will continue to work as hard as I always do up until midnight of April 12th. And then you will have Mayor Pro Tem Angie Jorstad. And we've already done quite a bit of discussions and talking, and we even talked about this position. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she will run the ship until the council decides who the new mayor is.
Congratulations. And good luck.
Oh, and she found out last night.
I couldn't even begin to keep a straight.
Any other questions on process or?
No, just thank you, Mayor, for all your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And want to echo the congratulations, and I've said this to you privately, like, we get this one life to live. And it's important that we do what we can to, to make it the life we need it to be. And so I admire your courage in making this decision.
I appreciate that, Angie.
I just
All right.
also, I think we all want to offer our congratulations to you and to your wife and to your kids. And I think the vast majority of people in our city know your mayor, but they have no idea just how much you've sacrificed being our mayor. You travel more than anyone I know advocating for our city and bring back millions of dollars to pay for our projects. And, if you don't attend council meetings or you don't follow along on the various boards and commissions, you have no idea really what's going on in our city. And Mayor Gailey, you have done a tremendous job. I'm so grateful for all the work that you've done. One of the things that always stood out for me, and one of the reasons I ran for city council, is because I watched you. I have a business across the street, and I watched you lead our city through a pandemic when the entire world was shutting down, and Lake Stevens forged forward and built the mill and improved Cove Park and met all of these goals that you had set and the city had set, and you were at the helm. And I, for one, am very, very grateful for everything you've done. I'm grateful to your wife for the sacrifices she made, allowing you to do this, which I know were great. And as well as your little go-getter, little sons. It's definitely affects the whole family, and I'm grateful to you all.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate your words. Yeah. All right, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.
There's
Go
no
out
second.
and-
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Go out and do great work.